Do you feel like your freestyle kick is holding you back? You have a monstrous upper body strength and your swimming mechanics are solid. But when it comes to break from the pack in the last stretch of the competition, you are left behind. No worries. We are going to resolve all of that in today's video, where we're going through a full plan to make your freestyle kick into an unbeatable asset. But be warned, easy fixes do not exist, and this program requires time and effort from your part. And we are diving deep into how to transform your freestyle kick from a weakness into a strength that powers you through the pool. It doesn't matter if you are just starting out or a seasoned swimmer, a strong kick can elevate your entire freestyle game. We'll break down the theory behind why your kick matters and a fully designed 17-week plan to turn your weakness into an asset. So let's kick things off. And man, that was a bad transition. But before we jump into how you plan out your development, let's take a moment and learn what is the role of the kick and why kicking is such an integral part of your freestyle, especially when it comes to the shorter, like under 200-meter races. And also why weak kickers should not become desperate, as your isolated kicking speed has very little to do with your full stroke swimming speed. And let's start with the key question: how much propulsion does the kick actually provide? And depending on the source, the contribution of your kick to overall forward propulsion in freestyle ranges from anywhere from 0 to 15%. And at least in raw velocity sense, the faster you go, the less the kick has an ability to actually help your speed forward. Because once you reach a certain velocity, say about 1.5 meters per second, there is no way the legs can contribute much to maintaining that, as they cannot get to you even near those velocities in isolation. At lower velocities, as in distance races, the legs could potentially have a higher role in forward motion, but the metabolic requirements of kicking hard are probably not worth it, as you can produce the same speed through your upper body with the fraction of the energy cost. And now many of you are saying, that just sounds wrong. How could that be possible, as you see the huge splashes from the legs by Olympic sprinters? And for sure, you have seen the sets designed for monstrous kick in Swim Swam or Swimming World magazine. So please don't get me wrong. Kicking is important, but just not in the way we traditionally think. Because the reality is that our legs are not naturally designed to generate strong backwards propulsion while the body is in a horizontal position in the water. The only time we truly create meaningful force backwards with our legs is when the shin tilts at a slight angle relative to the water surface, exposing the top surface of the foot to push the water backwards. And I know there are some theories about vortices and the like, but even if those turn out to be true, it doesn't change the fact that the kick have a very minor role. So for our discussion, it is better to just think within Newtonian mechanics. So why do we kick then, and what is the importance that I mentioned? The legs actually have two major roles, and the first one is body stabilization and body position, as the kicking helps keep your hips and your legs high in the water, which obviously improves your body position and reduces the drag. And rightly timed kicks also help to counterbalance the vertical and lateral forces produced by your upper body. So for example, when your arm shoots up from the water into a recovery, a rightly timed kick maintains your body line horizontal. And then the real big reason, which is a little bit more abstract, because in general, in whole body activities like freestyle swimming is, your body always moves as a unit, and your leg power must match the energy of your upper body. And there are lots of different rhythms, but you have all felt this. As you start churning harder with your upper body, it would require major conscious effort to stop your legs from matching up with your upper body. And in land-based sports, this is a little bit easier to understand, because the force transfer always starts from the ground up. So when you're throwing a baseball or javelin or whatever, you plant your feet and then you rotate your body against that stable platform to transfer force into your arm. And similar phenomena actually happens in swimming. So for example, most often right before you start the power phase of your arm pull, the same side leg plants the feet down, which then rotate your pelvis to the opposite side and shoots energy to the arm. And when you're swimming fast, This also is the moment that the pulling arm that was pulling is swinging out of the water, and the harder and faster you do this, the harder the leg will automatically kick. And when this rhythm crumbles, like at the end of your race, you're usually done. Because when one part of that movement chain doesn't match up anymore, everything kind of dies. I can't find a better word here. And this is why having equal power and endurance in your legs, or even a bit of a reserve compared to your upper body, directly affects your swimming. And you can see and definitely feel this, because once the legs go out in a race, everything slows down. Not because your legs stop contributing propulsion, but because the movement chain gets off rhythm, and simultaneously your line and stability worsens, as the legs no longer have the energy to keep you up and stable. So in terms of committed block of training, when's the best time to turn your kick into a powerhouse? I would recommend the off-season or early pre-season as ideal for building raw kick strength and endurance. Think of it as laying the foundation when competition pressure is low. This gives you plenty of time to refine and integrate the kicking as races approach. But don't panic if you're mid-season. You can still sneak in some kick-focused work, like short, intense sets after practice or as part of your warm-up, to keep those legs sharp without throwing off your full stroke rhythm. Timing it right ensures your kick peaks when you need it the most. Understanding the requirements of the kick in your race swimming helps us to start creating a framework for your practice. So in order to get your legs properly into your swimming, first you have to match the power abilities with your upper body. But in the grand scheme of things, having the endurance to keep your legs in for the race duration is the most important trainable quality. Usually, recognizing what you need is quite easy. If you can pull almost the same pace as you can freely swim with the arms and legs, you do need to concentrate on bringing your leg power to a higher level. And of course, there might be some technical issue that's stopping you from integrating the legs to your stroke, overkicking and not letting the legs naturally settle into the upper body driven rhythm. But that is a discussion for another video. For now, let's trust that the solution comes from bringing your legs to a new level of power. And on the other hand, if you bring a solid full body power to the table, but your legs crumble in agony even in a 50-meter race, endurance is probably the key element for your program. And of course, it might again be that you are trying to overkick in your races, but let's assume today that the problem is only in your fitness. And it doesn't really matter much whether your isolated kick speed even gets better. But trust me, it will get better as you start focusing on your kick, but building the ability to at least kick hard for the duration of your race is a prerequisite before you start thinking how to integrate the kick to your full stroke swimming. Finally, at the end of the program, we do need to blend your newly found kicking ability to your full stroke swimming. So now into the program. Using the Swim Rhearsal program design framework, which you can find from my ebook, link in the description, we first have to decide when a kicking focused training cycle would be the most appropriate. And if you are a subscriber of this channel, as you should be, you already know that this kind of isolation improvement should take place far away from a competition, so that there is enough time to integrate the improved physical capacities into your full swimming, which will be our goal in the last phase of this program. And that phase should end about 4 to 5 weeks before your goal competition, as the last phase of training should always be fully devoted to race-specific practice. We will have 3 phases. First one dedicated to power development for 5 weeks. The second phase for endurance will be 8 weeks long, and the last integration phase will take 4 weeks. Although not all of the weeks are designed for accumulating improvement sets, since every 3 to 4 weeks we will have a deload or a recovery week where there will be no specialized kick training taking place, allowing you to recover and adapt. We start out first developing the power and anaerobic abilities of our legs. And again, this is a general program. If you already have a solid kicking power, but need more endurance, you could potentially skip this phase. But in reality, it probably doesn't hurt anyone to have a more powerful kick. Basically, we devote 3 training sets in our weekly structure to freestyle kick and keep developing these sets, especially through intensity, meaning you should aim to find ways to be faster, practice after practice. And while the volume of the work kind of stays relatively static, the more you can spread these sets within a week. A perfect sweet spot of frequency would be to do these sets in a sequence every 48 hours, first in the practice and then do the rest of your non-kick focused training after that. And if you train more than 3 times a week, make sure your legs don't get too overloaded in those extra practices. And if you want the full training program with 3 weekly practices explained in full detail, join the Swim Rhearsal community, where you also find months and months of detailed training programs for all the strokes and distances. Link is in the description for that one too. And after that shameless pitch, let's get back to those sets. The first set to be developed is 2 to 3 rounds of 3x15 meter sprint freestyle kicking with about 1 minute of rest or more if you need it. And after those sprints, maybe a 50 easy in between or just resting for a couple of minutes and then blasting 125 freestyle swim, maybe with some fins, and then taking an extended break of at least 4 minutes. And here again, the idea is to ignite your fast twitch fibers on the kick and then aim to translate that new speed straight into your swimming. And the fins help you to emphasize and really feel how the kick contributes to your full stroke freestyle. The most important factor to be overloaded here is your velocity. And I know it is very hard to time your 15s as you're swimming alone, but do your best, and in the end, if you have maximal intent and effort, I'm pretty confident you will improve. And keep the volume low. Only do the 3rd round if you feel that you can still find more and more speed. And depending on the swimmer, you might need the 1st round to kind of get going and only reach that 100% max speed on that 2nd round. And as you start getting more and more out of your legs over the 4 weeks, you might also need to extend the rest periods. But that is a positive in the speed development context. And then on to the next workout. Again, preferably 48 hours later, we will be working with power again, but this time using some lactic intervals, a bit more volume and strain to your system. And what we are looking for is about 15-second repetitions and 45 to 60-second rest periods. And for most swimmers, this will mean something between 12.5 to 20 meter reps. And it's not exact, just avoid getting too acidic. A little taste of those hydrogen ions at the end of each round is totally fine, but it should be fully cleared before the next round of sprints. So on week 1, we will do 2 to 3 rounds of 6 times 20 meters kicking with that 45 to 60-second rest, while holding a pull buoy sideways in front of us, kicking hard against that resistance. Then between the rounds, again, take about 4 to 6 minutes of easy swimming or just resting. And whether you do 2 or 3 rounds is again totally up to how fatigued you get from a round. And in general, more is better, but only if it's of high quality. And after this resisted set, I would highly recommend doing a set of full freestyle, because you might be surprised how well connected your legs feel after. And then we progress this set on week 2. Same reps, same set, same idea. But now we switch the pull buoy into a kickboard, holding it vertically in front of us, and here you kind of have to find a good resistance for yourself. So depending on how much you submerge the board underwater, you can work out what is the good resistance for yourself. Because on week 3, you submerge the kickboard a couple centimeters more, and then on week 4 even more. And this way you're overloading the strength requirements just a bit more every week. And in an ideal world, you would find the small amount of added resistance that keep your velocity equal over the weeks, while still adding the resistance. The effort is not quite 100% maximal, but a bit submaximal, so maybe like 90%, so you can keep the velocity even throughout the repetitions. While we are working on the power of your legs, this kind of lactic speed endurance also develops your aerobic system to a very high extent, especially in those fast twitch fibers. So even though it might feel too easy, just be patient because there's harder things to come. And on practice number 3, we will delve into an acidic world by doing some 50s all out with long active rest, starting out with 2 50s all out kicking with 250 of easy kicking immediately afterwards. And then after, you can rest as long as it is needed to produce a second maximal 50. And now, when I say 50s, I am talking about a distance that will take about 35 to 45 seconds from you. So it can be 25 meters, 30 meters, 35 meters, but you get my point. Because the body doesn't know meters or yards. It just knows that you demand it to withstand about 40 seconds of high intensity kicking. Now, if it takes you about 50 seconds to do a 50, I would still go for it. Having that clear endpoint of the wall helps you to get motivated to push through the pain all the way to the end. And then we use a very simple progression. On week 2 and 3, you will do 3 by 40 seconds high intensity kicking, following each gut-busting acid bath with 200 easy kicking. And finish off week 4 with 4 rounds of 40 seconds all out blood and cut 50s, followed by 150 easy kicking. So not only are you working to produce high quality kicking for a bit longer periods, you are also maximizing both the development of your anaerobic and aerobic qualities. Because as you go immediately into that easy kicking afterwards, your legs will learn how to burn lactate as a fuel. So you don't want to fully relax after you have done your sprint. Just keep going with an easy to moderate pace, however much it burns. And little by little, you will feel how the burning starts to subside. And hopefully it happens faster and faster every week. And that's it. The first phase is over. After this 4-week cycle, we deload for 1 week, in which you should actively avoid kicking and in general cut your training volume in half. And now you have had the pleasure of working short distances, and it's time to start expanding, which means dropping the intensity a bit and focusing on bringing some endurance into the mix. However, in your other training, you should start the transfer process of powerful kicking into your swimming. And I would suggest keeping in at least 1 speed set and 1 lactic interval set in your program, but this time with full stroke. And if done with the same sessions as the endurance kicking, the fast sets should be swam before the kicking sets. And the goal of these next workouts is simply to extend your ability to kick, at least for the duration of your race. And obviously, if your main goal is a 200 race, the capacity needs to be a bit higher. And if you rarely do races over 100 meters, the capacity needs to be a bit less. So some level of individualization is called for depending on the race you are shooting towards for. However, since we are doing this phase of training quite far away from a competition, overshooting your capacity has very minor drawbacks. Main one being staying in this isolated kicking endurance phase for too long. Because in an optimal world, you would start the next phase of integration at the exact moment you have reached your needed capacity and start training your kick inside your full stroke swimming. Because in the end, that is what matters the most. So even though the plan calls for 8 dedicated weeks, which again means 3 hard ones and 1 easy week repeated twice, if you are happy with your kick after the first 4-week cycle, you can skip the next cycle. And if you have plenty of time before your competition and you want even more extra boosting for your leg endurance, you could potentially go through the cycle 3 times. And now that we got that underway, let's discuss each and every practice. Like the previous phase, we have 3 different sets that we cycle through and overload 3 weeks. The first repeated endurance set builds upon the lactic set you did in the previous phase. We use the 15-second repetitions, which for most is again that 15 to 20 meters of intense kicking, but now we add reps and cut the rest time to about 30 seconds and probably bring the intensity down a bit. On week 1, you will do 30 repetitions of it, which will take 22 minutes and 30 seconds to complete. And the hard part to make this actually work is finding just the right intensity at the start that allows you to keep the speed even throughout the set. And I would suggest that on this first week, you start out quite conservatively and build up throughout the set. Because if you overshoot the intensity and start getting acidic, you have to cut the set and take an extra 2 to 3 minutes of rest and then go again. The rest interval is not, again, and as always, exact. So just after your controlled sprint, just kick easily to the wall and then leave again after 20 to 35 seconds of rest. The short distance and relatively long rest compared to the distance kicked should allow you to train the endurance of your fast twitch fibers without too much acidic fatigue. On this first week, it is better to go too slow and then progressively start challenging yourself throughout the weeks. And on week 2, we will progress the set into 35 repetitions, and then on week 3 we will go all the way up to 40 repetitions, which takes about 30 minutes. And then week 4 is again easy with absolutely no focused kick training, and then you repeat this exact cycle of 3 weeks again with the same repetitions but hopefully a little bit more speed. And you can keep the repetition distance the same or use a tempo trainer with a 15-second beeper and just aim to go a little farther away than in the last cycle. And practice number 2 is what we would classically associate as endurance. So if on the first set you can't help but to get a bit acidic, even though your aerobic system will be working maximally there, in this kicking set we want to avoid any signs of acidity and keep the work as aerobic and quote-unquote easy as possible. The goal is to maximize your aerobic capacity, the number of mitochondria, capillaries, etc. in your legs to make sure endurance never becomes a problem in your race. And this is very simple. On week 1, we will do 4 times about 5 minutes of free kicking. Again, the distance is based on your level. For some, it will be 150 meters, and if some super elite is watching this, you can go close to 350 meters. Again, it doesn't matter. The main point is to keep kicking for about 5 minutes. And after the repetition, rest for 1 minute and then go again. And aim to keep the pace even, which will require you to start out super slow. The constant tension and demand to keep the legs working for 5 minutes straight is challenging enough. So there's no need to try and push it. Then on week 2, we will extend and do 4 by 6 minutes with that 1 minute of rest in between. Week 3, we add another minute and do 4 by 7 minutes. And as we planned, week 4 is our deload with no kick training. And on the next 3-week cycle, we start week 5 by extending to 3 by 8 minutes. And on week 6, 3 by 9 minutes. And then we finish off week 7 with 2 times 15 minutes of straight kicking. And your main goal is just to do the work. So no breast kicking in the middle and never let go of the kicking rhythm. What you will notice is that the work will get easier. Your muscles will get used to this constant tension, and if the thought of kicking 30 minutes almost straight seemed impossible at first, at the end of this phase it will be a breeze. And most likely there will never be a need to create more aerobic capacity in your legs as long as you maintain this ability through the years. And finally, the 3rd weekly set, we get to really push our legs forward by introducing some low-level threshold work. And we are doing repeated 1-minute work intervals. And again, this is designed to be 50s, but if it takes you more than 1 minute and 10 seconds to finish the 50, you should do less. Just kind of float back to the wall for the remaining distance. The intensity of the repeat is what allows you to keep the pace even throughout the set. So at first it feels too easy, but throughout the reps it will become more and more demanding. However, at the end of the set, you should still have a feeling you could do about 30 to 40% more before like total destruction. So slightly acidic, but not over the threshold at any point of the set. The set will stay the same throughout the 2-3 week cycles, separated again by the deload or adaptation week. But we aim to overload both our velocity and the rest interval. So you remember those 1 minute all-out sprints from the power phase? It is very likely that at the end of this endurance cycle, you might be hitting all the repetitions at the same velocity as you did on that power cycle. Now, just considerably easier. The set is 1250s or about 1 minute of that free kicking. And on week 1, we will do it with 1 minute of rest. On week 2, we drop the rest to 55 seconds. And week 3 is with 50 seconds of rest. Then, as always, week 4, no kicking, just recovery. And then we start out week 5 from 50-second rest again. But most likely your velocity has improved because you adapted during that recovery. Week 6 is with 45 seconds of rest, and then we really overload and cut the rest time to 35 seconds on that last week or week number 7. And throughout the weeks, you should aim to either swim the 50s slightly faster every time or increase the distance you can kick in 1 minute. Even keeping the same velocity while dropping the rest interval means you are overloading, but there should be some improvement in speed as well. And this is why it is crucial to find the right speed on week 1. It is much better to undershoot the speed and thus have more kind of room to improve, because if you trash your legs completely on week 1, there's limited potential for progression. And you don't need that much stimulus to keep improving anyways. The goal is to gently urge your kick to develop. And after all that work, week 8 of this endurance phase is a week for recovery again. And I would highly urge you to take it very easy, like almost taking a full week off, maybe just like 1 to 2 20-minute dips into the water and nothing else, because you want to give this opportunity to drop off any accumulated fatigue and load your energy up for what's to come. And now, congratulations. Well, not quite yet, because you got to do this work first. But in advance, if you go through this plan, or even like 75% of it, I can give you my 100% Swim Rhearsal guarantee that your kicking has improved. Like we discussed earlier, it is not enough to become the strongest kicker of your pool. You also need to integrate the kick to your full stroke swimming, and that's what's coming next. This integration phase of 4 weeks, again 3 weeks of improvements and 1 week of recovery, where we put those new versions of your legs into use. Learning how to kick with more power and how to sustain the stability, the connection, and a bit of added propulsion in your freestyle stroke. In reality, you could pretty much just do any generic program designed to improve your swimming, and your body will, in time, learn how to integrate the pieces into a whole. But that's not what we are about at Swim Rhearsal. We aim to optimize and get that kick inside your swimming as fast as possible. So now, we are just discussing the 3 sets inside your weekly structure you should add. You should, of course, be training according to your plan on other qualities as well. This work is not very fatiguing, and you can either do these integration sets as your technical tune-up before your physiological work, and through these sets you become more aware of the leg's role and can keep the integration process going on in your main sets as well. And alternatively, they can be done as part of your general work in your practices after the main work has been done. So you should test out where it fits the best for you. And the first set for integration is a classic one, alternating kicking and full stroke swimming. So we're doing 3 to 5 rounds of 425s freestyle kicking, but this time in your 0 position, and then finishing off with 250s freestyle swimming. And every round that you do should be slightly faster than the last one, and you should do these with unlimited rest because this is technical work. While you could do all the work in the 0 position on the past cycles as well, but in here it's crucial since your goal is not to kick fully up and down, but rather slightly sideways, so you can feel what amplitude of kick allows you to hold your balance, how much the heels break the surface, etc. During the developmental work, it really didn't matter because we were just interested in raw power and endurance. But now there should be concentrated effort to switch the thinking from just kicking into how to actually stabilize and connect your legs into your body position and pulling. And that's what we do right after the kicking, as we go straight into those 250s of swim. Here again, the idea is not to kick hard, but rather just be engaged on the process on how the legs can help your stroke. The second set might be a bit surprising as it includes some pulling. So we will do 200 pull with paddles and a small parachute if you have one. Although the equipment other than the buoy is fully and completely optional. And after the pulling, we go right into 250s freestyle swimming. And we go through this sequence 2 to 4 times. And again, a slight descent from round to round can also be included. So what's the idea behind this, as you probably thought we were working on kicking? And yes, we are. But there are 2 goals here. By taking the legs fully off, so make sure you are not letting the legs do anything during the pulling. We sensitize you to feel the legs roll as you take the buoy away. All of a sudden, it becomes much clearer for you how the legs both stabilize your whole body and how the legs drive the propulsion of the upper body. And number 2, by gently fatiguing your upper body, you have to find a way to rely more on your legs as you go into that full swimming. The effect is of course larger if you use the parachute and the paddles, but it works either way. And you don't really have to consciously try to find anything. Your body will automatically organize your stroke to avoid relying too much on fatigued body parts. It will recognize that, hey, there is some energy in my legs and my arms are tired, and put the legs into good use. And finally, as a third set, we have a straight speed or maybe more of an lactic speed endurance set, depending on how you implement it. But it is very simple. We will do 2 to 8 rounds of 4 times, again 15 to 25 minute sprints. And every round starts out with a sprint where the first half is done pulling and then the second sprint is done fully with swimming. The third one is first half kicking and then transitioning straight into swimming. And the fourth one is again just full freestyle. And all of the reps are done with at least 1 minute of rest or more if you decide to do it as a real absolute speed workout. Then rest sufficiently, maybe again that 4 to 6 minutes of recovery between rounds, and aim to constantly get your legs more and more engaged with your swimming. And use of fins on some of the rounds is encouraged, and parachutes and some other forms of resistance might make the set even more effective. And this is a textbook example of differential learning where you intentionally perform different variations to expose your body and your nervous system, so your brain, to changing movement patterns. And again, you might consciously experience eureka moments on how your legs all of a sudden connect to your full swimming skill. But even if you don't get these moments, your unconscious is for sure processing the information and at least trying to make sense of the noise or the variation in the set. And within this integration phase, there is really no need to overload these sets. You could make any of these sets also an improvement sets to be developed, but in this context we treat them as either technical sets or developmental sets for your general fitness. And before we wrap up, let's talk about some caveats when implementing this program. First of all, the volumes of the sets are very much my best estimate, so you might need more or less to see improvement, because it all depends on your level of advancement and the amount of other training you are doing. So if you're constantly getting sore, or especially if you experience some nagging pains, please tone down the volume. And on a similar note, please respect the deload weeks. And it should not just be a recovery week from kicking, but from all of your training. So please don't try to hack the system and just put the legs on the back burner while still working hard on something else. Your whole body needs the rest and time for adaptation, which means improvement. There are no easy fixes, and developing any aspects of your swimming takes intelligent work and effort. But in the end, all that work is certainly worth it. And if you're stuck with me this far, you're already on your way to a killer kick. And please tell me, what kind of program would you like me to create to you next? And just drop it in the comments. And if you found this helpful, smash that like button and subscribe so you never miss a video. And see you at the pool.